Hi, everybody. Michael Silber here, Event Director for Enlit Australia, continuing our series of interviews with industry leaders. Today I'm with Sarah McNamara, who's the Chief Executive of the Australian Energy Council. She was appointed in July 2018 as CEO. Sarah joined the Energy Council as General Manager of Corporate Affairs in January 2016. And she's an industry leader with more than a decade of experience working with policy and regulatory frameworks across the resources and energy sector. Prior to joining the Energy Council, Sarah was Chief of Staff to the then Minister for Industry, the Honorable Ian McFarlane, and she has also worked as a Senior Policy Advisor for the Prime Minister. Between 2008 and 2013, Sarah worked in AGL's Corporate Affairs team as Head of Government Affairs and Community Engagement. Sarah began her career as a corporate lawyer and has a Bachelor of Arts and Law from the University of Melbourne. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Let's begin this by, we're quite interested, and our audience is quite interested in learning how the COVID-19 pandemic, well, we understand the COVID-19 pandemic is an unprecedented crisis. Could you give us some insights as to how the Australian power generation business has responded to this crisis? Is it something that could have been planned for?
Well, actually, the power generation sites and the companies that operate them were really well prepared in terms of pandemic preparations. These industrial sites are accustomed, I think, to making safety their number one priority. And when COVID was declared a global pandemic, the operators of those sites immediately went to, firstly, how do we protect our workforce? Secondly, how do we protect our assets? And thirdly, how do we make sure that we can maintain security of supply for our customers so they're not left in the dark? So with that in mind, very quickly, workforces were split and cleaning and other hygiene issues were looked at in order to protect workforces. So if there was any infection rates within a particular site, then there would be another team, half the workforce would be able to step in without there being a concern. And the other thing the industry did was work with the market operator. Traditionally, different companies, we kind of work in our own silos, but with a global pandemic like this and with the responsibility we have, I guess, as being a provider of an essential service, we knew that it was critical that if a generation site was unable to field a workforce because of infection, then we would need to bring in potentially skilled people from other sites. So we worked with government and regulators and the market operator to ensure we were able to move people between sites, and we have those contingency plans in place to protect the sites. And happily, we haven't been in a situation yet where any of these contingency matters have needed to be activated, and we certainly hope that continues to be the case. But it was very impressive how quickly the industry moved to put these really sensible measures in place.
And it seems somewhat unusual. Most industries were caught by surprise, so it's quite interesting.
Well, I suppose we were, in a sense, surprised when COVID was declared a pandemic, but the industry is really accustomed, I think, to responding quickly and with real confidence to maintain safety measures. So in that way, I think we were reasonably well placed to respond very quickly and react.
Thanks for that. You know, one of the things that I've heard a lot of discussion about is the impact of all the stay-at-home orders on energy demand. Has that actually had any impact on demand, or has COVID-19 had impact on overall demand?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because we certainly anticipated there'd be a really strong downward impact on demand as a result of lots of industry shutting down and people working from home. We've actually seen a milder impact than we were anticipating. And I think perhaps that may have something to do with the fact that lots of heavy industries are still able to operate, albeit with social distancing measures in place. So construction sites and mining, aluminium smelters, for example, are still, as far as I'm aware, in operation, and that's helped keep demand buoyant, as well as residential demand being higher than it normally is. But having said that, in Victoria, for example, we're seeing a drop in demand on weekday mornings of about 8%. Now, at midday, it's around about 5% on average, and on weekends, it's a drop of around 3%. And Queensland and New South Wales have not dissimilar figures too. Now, this could be due to a number of things. It's probably COVID related, of course, primarily, but things like the variability of rooftop solar demand is another factor and an input into variability of demand, and we don't have a clear answer as to how much that may have also impacted those figures.
So with that said, do you expect, or are you seeing, well, I guess you just addressed that, the difference, the impact on the load curve.
Yeah, so we are seeing some impact on the load curve, and we are hopeful, like we're noticing as everyone else is, that most states seem to be lifting the kind of restrictions that were in place. So we may find that decrease in demand actually improves over the next few weeks, and we're certainly hopeful that's going to be the case. But having said that, we're also cognizant that if people continue to work from home during winter and they feel that it's necessary to put their heaters on and the like, particularly in the colder states such as Victoria, that's going to have upward pressure on demand, but also upward pressure on residential bills, which brings with it its own set of concerns.
Yeah. And how about on the retail side? Are there concerns about bill shock? And how are the retailers dealing with the situation of increased level of customers facing financial difficulty?
It was immediately obvious to all retailers that their customers were gone. Many of their customers would likely be doing it tough through the coming months. To that end, retailers have been working with regulators and government and with other aspects of the supply chain as well to talk about how best to support customers during this difficult time. Now, I think in the case of business customers and particularly SME customers, they're already feeling the impacts of COVID-19 on their energy bills because in many cases they've had to shut down their businesses, so their ability to continue to pay their bills is something that's immediate and present. Mm-hmm. For residential customers, retailers aren't yet reporting a huge upswing in financial hardship numbers, but we do expect that's because the bills haven't yet come through for those households where there's been perhaps job losses or there's additional financial stress. So it is hard to anticipate what the volume is going to be of these customers in financial hardship, and also what mitigating effects some of the government support measures may have, such as the JobKeeper allowance. But having said that, we are assuming the worst and wanting to support our customers as much as we can. So at every opportunity, retailers are saying to customers, give us a call, let's make sure you're on the best deal for your circumstances. And if you are really worried about paying your bill, give us a buzz and we'll get you onto a hardship program or a payment plan or something that'll help ease the stress a little bit and moderate your bill. Now, so hopefully those sort of measures will have a positive impact, but we know people are very stressed and quite understandable.
Yeah. Are those measures, is that consistent across the industry, the retail industry?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So retailers are obliged, it's a heavily regulated industry, as you know, and retailers have comprehensive hardship programs in place that they must offer to customers and that they promote to customers that they know are in financial hardship. Because what we always want to do is keep customers engaged with their retailer, because it's when customers stop engaging with their retailer that their debt levels really rise, and often to unmanageable levels, which of course makes it so much more difficult for the customers involved. What we like to do is engage with them early and give them the kind of support and financial counselling they need, and perhaps a payment plan that allows them to chip away at their bill rather than ignoring it and letting those debt levels rise to unmanageable levels.
So that's the short, what you're doing, your industry is doing in the short term. Do you think there's going to be any longer term impacts from the pandemic in the energy sector, and will it have any impact on the current energy transition?
Look, I think certainly around demand forecasting particularly, I mean, often with forecasts, of course, it's very difficult to get them right, and we tend to be more wrong than right when we're trying to anticipate demand. And the energy industry does not have an entirely accurate history of pinpointing where the demand's likely to be, but we will need to see what happens through the reconstruction phase for our economy and what that means, because we may see in the medium to long term less demand, downward pressure on demand rather than upward pressure on demand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we'd hope that's not the case, but if it is the case, we do need to consider things like transmission builds and other pipeline projects and whether they are still required, because of course they come at a cost as well. And when customers are doing it tough and bearing the cost of building infrastructure in our grid and paying for new projects, we really want to make sure that they're doing that for those projects that are absolutely necessary and on balance best for customers.
That's terrific, Sarah. Listen, I want to thank you for your time today, and I'm looking forward to working with you on our live conference in March of 2021, March 10th and 11th, and pick up where we left off in our planning for your participation in our August conference, which of course has been postponed. So thank you for your time.
No, it's been great to chat to you virtually, Michael.
Indeed. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, cheers. Bye-bye.